Hello, hi, it's Liz here. I've been asked a few times on the comments and messages about watercolouring or colouring stamped images. So I thought I would just show you what I do to get the effect that I like. I'm not a watercolour expert, but I do get quite good results. Well, it pleases me, the results with my colouring. So I thought I would just give you a quick rundown of the things that you can use to colour your stamps. So first of all, you'll need something to stamp on. I use this, it's just cheap watercolour or mixed media paper from Hobbycraft. This is just a small pad version. So it's just like watercolour paper, and so that means the water spreads nicely when you're colouring on it. So we'll just keep a sheet of that aside for the demonstration. You can also buy proper watercolour paper. It's some of my attempts. Yeah, it's kind of much the same. I quite like this because it's whiter than the watercolour, the more expensive one. I do quite like the white. I don't know why, but I just do. So that's what you need to stamp on if you're going to use watercolour. The other thing to do if you don't have watercolour paper, but you've got some clear gesso or white gesso, if you don't mind covering your background, is to put gesso on something, and that turns it into a kind of paper that you can watercolour on. The gesso stops the water from sinking into the paper. So you could do that if, say, you wanted to stamp on an old book page. You would put some clear gesso on it, stamp on it, and then you could watercolour on it. But we're going to use the watercolour card. The next thing you'll need, obviously, is some water, and you will need some paintbrushes, and you will also need something to stamp with. So what you need is something that's going to repel the water and not run into your image when you put the water on it. So water resistant is VersaFine, and it tells you on the back, perfect for using watercolours to colour your stamped images. So it always tells you on the ink pad. VersaFine Clear is another one that is pigment ink pad, perfect for using watercolours to colour stamped images. So you'll know when you're buying an ink pad, it'll tell you on the back whether it's water resistant. Today we'll use the black one. And you'll also need some paints, some ink pads, some pencils, anything that's water-based. So I use a little variety of things. I have, first of all, my Inktense pencils, which are a favourite. I've had them a long time. So you can use them. I'll show you how to use them. You can use, obviously, a watercolour set like this one, and that's the effect you get. Those ones are quite bright. And you could use there's another watercolour set, just to show you the difference, how these ones are much more muted, but it's vintage pastels, and that's why it's more muted. So you could use that set. You can also use distress ink pads. So any distress ink pad that you've got, these are water-based, and all you would do, in fact, I'll show you in a demonstration once we get our stamped images. There's no point in putting some ink down just now. So the distress ink pad and the oxide ink pad, use them just both the same way. You just get a slightly different colour for the oxide from the distress. So that's them. And Adirondack are also water-based, so same way as you would use the distress ink pads. I'm not sure that they make these anymore. I think it's a different thing they've brought out, but people might still have them. I still have all of mine, and they're still quite juicy, so I still use them, and they're nice colours. I do like the colours of these. I don't know why they stopped making them. So anyway, I'll just put them over there. So that's everything that you can use. You could also use your ink spray to watercolour. If you've got any refills for your ink pads, you can use them to watercolour. You can also get these cute little concentrated watercolour, they're little popper things that you squeeze the watercolour out. Yeah, so that's all the pads and the proper watercolour sets. You can also use, until I stretch over and get the pens. There's a variety of pens that are water based. These Zig Real Colour brush pens are a favourite. These are great for watercolour. You can also get a cheap version from Amazon. They're Bauer. Obviously not as good as the real brush, but they do the trick. And if you want to top up your colours, distress markers, they're also water based. You can use them. These Ecoline brush pens, water based. You can use pens in all the same way. These Artline Sticks pens, they're water based. So there's plenty of water based pens. What else have we got? Art and Graphic Zig, they're water based. So let's stamp an image and use some of the different ways to colour. So let's colour this sunflower. Yeah, I think it's a sunflower. So we're going to use the VersaFine because that's water resistant. So plenty ink, a nice firm stamp down. Give it a little few seconds just to get into the watercolour card, watercolour paper. Good. So we've got a nice clear image to colour. So we'll just put that to the side. And to colour this, let's use some pencils on some of it so that I can show you how the pencils work. So we've got our brush and our water. Yeah, am I in? Up a little bit. There we are. And we'll start off with the yellow and the orange. And all I do, and I know that some people don't like to put water onto the tip, but I don't mind. I've had these pencils for a long time and the water hasn't harmed the wood. So we're just picking up, and we can just continue to use that little bit of paint that's on there. There we are. So easy. Am I doing this in? I can't quite. Yeah, there we are. So let's just wipe that off, and let's move on to something else while that dries, and I'll add a little bit of highlights. So let me show you how to do it with an ink pad. So simply, we're just laying down some ink from the pad. Get some water, and again we're just picking it up with our brush. We'll try it out in a little spare piece. That's got a little bit of the pad there, just to pull that off. So that's how we would do it with an ink pad. What else have we got? Let's show you with the paints. So just try this little paint here. Got quite a lot on the brush. Try it in a, it's very pale. Let's try this colour so that you can see it, what it looks like. These are vintage pastels, so they are very pale, but you can see how it just goes on the same. Let's see, let's try a pen. Oh, get the pens up, and we'll try the yellow. So we'll just give that a little wipe again. And again, we're just putting it down. And if you don't have one of these, I've got a glass mat that I usually do this on at the other end of the desk. But the glass mat, when I do a video, I get a reflection, and that's not good on the video. So you can put it down, put the ink or the pen or the paint or anything down on your glass mat or a saucer or anything that's not going to be porous, or even your acrylic stamp block. So you can see how things just go on by adding some water. Let's use a distress marker, and we can just add some highlights now. Add some water to that. Yep. So to add highlights, we're just going to go round an edge, and then we'll just use a nice clean brush, and we just rough up the edge. Can you see how that's just and just blend it in, because it'll stay wet. Because it's watercolour paper, it'll stay wet long enough for you to blend in. Let's try one of these. Oh, that's very orange. Yep. And we'll just add a little bit here. And of course, if you're doing a flower, it's never perfect anyway. So we'll just blend that in. And then we'll just use that for the middle, because it's very orange. And if you really wanted something dark, just to blend the edge, you can just go straight in with your pen and then just blend it in. So, yeah. So that's all the different ways you can do that with a flower, and all the different water-based things. So let's try another method where you can stamp and pull the colour in. So this time we're not going to use our VersaFine. We are going to use the Distress. And I just need to give me 2 seconds till I get an acrylic block. Right. Okay, so the stamp is on the acrylic block, and this time we will stamp it using, and I hope this pad is juicy enough. Some of my Distress pads are getting quite old, so fingers crossed of getting this a bit messy, but we'll just do it there. Oops, that came up there, but I'll hope for the best. Not perfect, and it's not really the colour that I would choose. Let's try it with the brown. Well, vintage photo, or what is it? Yeah. Let's do it on. Let's be extravagant and get another sheet. I should have had my porridge this morning. Well, yeah, it'll do. So this time, because that's not water resistant, we can just use, that's a little bit too wet, we can just use the water on the top. Can you see how that just pulls in the colour? Just a little. It's an almost dry brush, doesn't take much, and you don't want to fill it all in. You just want to dab it a little so that you've still got some white highlights on your flowers. And it'll also pick up some colour that's already on the brush, and you can just add little bits where it's little leaves that are solid. You can just go round them a little bit, just a hint of a colour. And then for this bird cage, you can see where we can just pull the colour through and just use a really dry brush so that you're hardly getting any there on that, because that would be where the shine would be to make it look kind of 3D. So you're putting less colour on this bit, and we'll add a little bit more water and we can just go down each of the bars. Just doesn't have to be perfect. We're just adding a notion of colour. A notion, is that how you would say it? So you can see how that makes a difference. Without adding any extra colour, you're getting a blend of the same colours on a stamped image, and that's because we used something water-based. We could pull it out with the water. That's actually quite nice. You'll probably see that in a future video. Right, so this was the stamp that I used in my Junk Journal July, and I think this was the stamp that the lady wanted to see coloured, so I hope she tunes in, and I hope she stuck with me till we got to this bit. So this is a penny black. I do love my penny blacks. It's penny black and it's called Buzz in the Ear. Now, what will we use to colour Buzz in the Ear? For these wood mounted stamps, it's always good for a beginner because it gives you exactly what colours. You know, obviously you can do your own colours, but it shows you where to shade and it shows you the colours that they've used. So for a beginner, it's actually really quite easy just to copy. Just sit it there and copy. And I think we will, what have we not used? I think we've used everything. Will we use the pencils again? I think we'll use the pencils and maybe a zig. Or will we use this? We'll use the zig markers because I think we've hardly used them. So for zig, we've got, let me find the colour, a pale grey, right, light grey, and then that's a blue grey and the dark grey. So we'll do his coat first. I'm trying to think. Hedgehog. His jaggy bits. What are they called? Oh golly, see when you're on camera you can never find the right words. So you'll see I'm not using water because that I know just by knowing my pens that it's very pale anyway and doesn't need this. Darker grey is another thing and needs the water. So if you're going to use the pen straight, it's very dark, but by adding some water and just dabbing it, you can see how you can add, and you can just keep adding to get to the dark that you want. So again, we're just going round to add a little bit of the darker, just a shuggle, a little shuggle is enough. I hope I was, oh, there we are, anyway. Right, so that's this coat done, and let's do the edge of the flower. You can see they've just added pink to the outside of the flowers. So again, little squiggle down there, and just let's try it. Yep, it's all right. So just now, sometimes you'll get a little puddle of water. That's okay, just leave it, it'll dry in. It'll give you a nice watercolour effect. So that's just the edge there. And let's do the bees. So I know that this yellow is going to be okay, so I don't need to add water. And I know that I want the bees to be quite bright, so I'm happy to add the pen straight on, use a fairly dry brush and just a little blend of the orange into the yellow. And while we've got our orange and yellow out, we'll do the flower centre. A little bit in the centre and a little bit at the edge. And we've got a brighter orange, haven't we? Yes. Oh yeah. And a dry brush. Just blend that in. I think we'll add some of the darker to the busy bees. There we are. Now, we've got blue-grey for their wings. And I know that's quite a dark one. So we'll just, yep. You can see how quick it is. It's amazing. Amazing. And let's think what we need for his face and his feet and his arms. So we've got flesh colour and pale pink, and I know that this is very pale, so I know that I can just go for it straight with the pen because it's very pale. So you can see that that's really quite pale, but we'll add the pink highlights. And I know this is quite a pale one too. I think these ones are nearly done. I've had them a long time. Yep, you see? He's very cute, isn't he? And I think maybe we'll just add a little bit of the darker pink just to give him a little rosy cheek and a little bit of shading down the side. It doesn't matter which side you choose to put the shadings on. People will tell you to where the sun is, we'll cast a shadow and all the rest of it, but you know what? It's a cartoon hedgehog in craft world, and it doesn't need to be exact. What I do is I just choose a side and I just stick with it. So the two, let me show you just, so I just put the darker down that side on that foot and the same side on that foot, and I just left the tiniest little bit white on the right hand side so that it looks like it's cast a shadow, and the sun is shining on this side of his foot so that that remains dark on the other side. And we'll just give that a little blend in. So I think that's everything that I can think of. I was going to maybe colour a butterfly, but I don't think, I think I've done, what have we done? We've done blending here, lots of different, you can see now that's dry, how you get different effects with different types of watercolour, the palette and the pens and the pencils. This was, we started really like that, don't you think that's just lovely? This was just Distress ink, and we just pulled the colour with a tiny little bit of water on the brush, and then we coloured in the cute hedgehog. And the only thing I didn't show you, I suppose, were these, which are the re-inkers. And all you do, again, just put some, a little dab will go a long way. Add some water, and again, we're just, so you can use your re-inkers. This is Watercolour. I used this on my Secret Garden book recently. A little dab there and some water. Again, easy. This, don't spray, just dab. Take the whole lid off, dab some down. Little bit of water. So, and again, you know, it can be as much water, gives you pale, put down a layer of pale, and then just gradually add your dark, once obviously that's not dry. And then, and even if you wanted to be fancy and let it run, you could make lots of backgrounds. You could do, and then you just add the darker and just get darker and darker until you get a nice colour, and that's how you do a runny background. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about colouring in. Let's not venture too far into backgrounds. Okay, well, I'm going to leave that there and tidy up this complete mess of watercolours everywhere. And if you've liked this video or you've found it useful, a thumbs up would be great, and take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.